Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing podcast, where I feel we're in calmer waters this week. We had a couple last week for all the Group 1 action between Doncaster and Irish Champions weekend. And we're looking ahead to 9 races from 2 different tracks this weekend. All the ITV races take place between Ayr and Newbury, where it is Ayr Gold Cup Day and Reef Day as well. Those are the feature races at the respective tracks. And just Sam Turner and I to take you through all the action. How are you, Sam? All good? Go again. Go again for me.
I'm good, thank you, Tom. Yeah, already our host has managed to not unmute me, which is probably not a bad idea actually for the ensuing 40 minutes that we're going to go through these 9 races. So hopefully we can provide plenty of entertainment and keep people with the winners that they've been accustomed to in recent weeks with Adele and Steve Jones and Rixie and yourself, of course.
Well, don't miss yourself out there. I think we didn't do as well as we'd have liked as far as Irish Champions weekend and Doncaster. We hit a few of the half decent prices, but the best bets were a little bit wide of the mark. Such is often the way, but there you are. Right. First of all, let's bring you up to speed with the offer. It is the Bet 10 Get 15 offer. That is the ongoing Matchbook offer. It's for new customers only. Bet £10 and you get 15 back, and you must use the bonus code Insights15. Remember that 15 off the back of it. Insights15 for that sign-up offer, which is the Bet 10 Get 15 offer. 18 plus, be gamble aware. And go to insights.matchbook.com for more details on that. And that is where to go as well for a recap of all the bets. So the best bets that Sam and I are putting up, well, all the bets we're putting up today. I think we've really got an angle in each race that we're going through. Pretty open stuff this weekend. Insights.matchbook.com for all of that. And that is where you'll find a recap of all the bets from all the podcasts, NFL and the football alike. If you like our content and you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, because it makes it easier to watch each and every video that we put up. And on the podcast, subscribe and give us a review, please, on your preferred podcast app. Let's get stuck in to the first of the races, which is the Doonside Cup. And this is the 155 at Ayr. I didn't know what to make of this before, when I pulled it up before official declarations, because there were a few where I thought, that doesn't run, does it? Surely. And as it happened, a Dave doesn't run, and that must be grand. In fact, just before I run through the prices and get your selection, what are you working on ground-wise at Ayr at the moment, Sam?
I think they're sort of predicting there might be 3 to 4 mil prior to Saturday's racing. So was it good to firm now? I haven't had a chance to calculate the times on day 1, unfortunately, but I wouldn't have thought it's going to get really soft, but you never know, do you? It might be on the easy side. But 3 to 4 mil, I think, in the next 24 to 36 hours should just prevent the Clerk of the Course from watering. Should be just good ground, really, you would hope.
Yeah, so I just went through the times before we started. I mean, it's officially good to firm, I know. And, one of the handicaps was 1.94 outside over a mile. Haven't quite finished racing as we're looking at this now. The Kilkerran Cup was 0.92 outside over the 10. So we are dealing with genuinely quick ground. And I think we've got to be working on, even if the bulk of that rain arrives, it's still going to be pretty swift ground, isn't it? So that's what I was working on anyway. Yeah. I hope they don't have to water, though, definitely.
No, I think if you're after any mud lovers, I think you might be out of luck this weekend. Certainly that Chichester performance was pretty close to one or two standard times that I use as well. So, that had all the hallmarks of being a good quality handicap, the Kilkerran Cup. But, for them to go pretty close like that would suggest that it's going to be decent ground this weekend and would suit the horses that can quicken off fast ground rather than the plodders.
So for the Doonside Cup, Juan Elcano is 2.3, 4.0 for Yukon Glen. Maidani is 7.0. Juan de Montalban 15.0, as is Pavlicino, and Platinum Card. And then we're into some fairly bigger prices. So I'll be honest, I sort of wanted to have Yukon Glen on side just because I think he's always underestimated. But the ground has put me off a bit. He's just, I know he's been fragile in the past, and I can't, if I'm working on quick side of good / good to firm, I just feel that's not ideal for him. What about you?
Yeah, fair point, well made. He's also 8 years of age now, and I wouldn't have thought Jim Goldie would risk him if he didn't feel the conditions were going to see him to good effect. So if they do just have that 3 or 4 mil just to take the sting out of the ground, I think he'll be fine. It was good ground at Sandown when he won back in July. He should get a good pace to aim at as well, with the likes of Pallavicino in here that's going to go off like a scalded cat. Obviously, he's got a bit of ground to make up with Juan Elcano from their running at Ascot, but I thought he ran a blinder that day. But he came from a very uncompromising position, and he just the run of the race didn't suit him. The track didn't suit him particularly. And I think back to Ayr, which is almost his home turf, he's 3 from 4 at this venue. I think everything's set up for a big run, providing, as you say, the ground isn't too quick and he doesn't feel it too much.
Yeah, that's what was putting me off. I don't know what it is. I don't. Sounds really bad. I'm just not a huge fan of Juan Elcano. I know he caused that surprise at a big price when he won the Wolferton at 14s, and he's. I feel like he should be the bet if the ground is quick, but I don't know. I haven't completely warmed to him to be honest, and I was so close to putting up Jochen Glenn, but I've probably at 4.0 let the ground put me off, and I'm not sure Meidani is. I think quick ground is probably good. I know he won with a bit of ease in the ground at Goodwood, but I like quick ground for him. I'm just ultimately not sure he's good enough. Would be my issue. So I as things stand, I'm sitting out. If it's genuinely good ground, then I would back Jochen Glenn. So maybe I think that's probably what I'll put in the blurb on Insight. So, but for me, there would have to be no firm in the going description personally, because I think that's not what
the only other one I'd put up at a price if there was going to be a bit of a shock. Say Jochen Glenn didn't fire on the ground, or Juan Elcano was a bit too short for people. It was Platinum Card, just because I know he's got tons to find on official ratings, but he does love Ayr. He's a fairly progressive horse. I think stepping back in trip as well. He patently didn't stay at Hamilton in that good quality 12 furlong handicap last time. I think back to this course and distance for him, he's probably available at 15.0, something like that. You'd have worse sort of small win and place bets in a race of this nature than him, I think, because there is some deadwood in the race. You've got 200-1 chances trained by Linda Perrott, Jim Goldie, etc., etc. So, at least he's a horse that does act very well on the track, won't mind the fast ground, well suited by a mile and a quarter. So could pick up some pieces if the main two didn't fire. And of course, Meidani, a truly run 10, is that going to be his cup of tea as well? So there are 1 or 2 ifs and buts at the front end of the market.
Okay, I'm gonna stick you down for that Platinum Card win and place, because it's a sort of small stakes. Just because if he wins at that price, or even if he's placed, then it's a fair shout, isn't it? But main play for you is Jochen Glenn, and I'll be siding with that horse as long as there's no firm in the going description. Let's move on to the 2:15 at Newbury. So we're flip flopping between and Newbury. This is the Dubai International Airport World Trophy Stakes. It's a Group 3 contest. We've got 8 going to post, and 4.33 is Cardem, 5.0 is Tis Marvellous, 5.2 is Hurricane Ivor, who won the Portland one last seen. King's Lynn is 6.0, absolute cliff horse for me. Moss Gill is 7.5, 13.0 for Atalis Bay, and 21.0 for Significantly 29 for Mackinac. I'll kick this off, Sam. I have long thought of the favourite Cardem as a horse to be against. He's often flattered to deceive, and then he rocked up over the 5 at Doncaster 10 days ago in the Scarborough Stakes, and all of a sudden I thought he looked a proper horse. I know he was a warm order at the top of the betting, but he looked as though making the transition back up into group company wouldn't be a problem of that off the back of that. And he's won at the trap before. Now, Tis Marvellous looked really good when he won last time. That was at Beverley in listed company. But I know they're rated the same, but Cardem just is a better horse than Tis Marvellous on his day for me. I just think he's probably needed the 5 to show it. I wonder why we haven't seen it. Maybe it was because Batash was knocking around that we never saw the horse back over the minimum. In fact, that was his first. I thought early on in his career maybe he'd raced over 5. He hadn't. So that was his first go back over the minimum. The blinkers went on at Newmarket, and I don't know if they made any improvement because he ran sort of the races he had been running, but he did travel that way. He looks to travel better in the blinkers, and I'm looking forward to seeing him back over the 5. I suppose a slight reservation I have is currently good to soft, and I don't. There doesn't look to be any rain around, so I'm hoping we're getting good ground come race time for this at Newbury. But I thought Cardem, he's not best bet material, but I thought he was at the price at 4.33. He'd be my confident enough selection personally. I'll definitely have him on side. Sam?
Yeah, he looked fine, didn't he? Blasting away over 5 on Town Moor, which is a track that he'd run at well before. So, you could certainly see where that performance came from, and there was a lot of money for him as well. So that suggested that they were absolutely happy that he was cherry ripe and ready to go, and he won very comfortably. I was impressed with him that day. Be interesting to see whether he can back up here from stall 8, whether that has any bearing at all, whether you want to be drawn one side of the track or the other. He's obviously going to be more near side than something like Tis Marvellous. I was really taken with Tis Marvellous last time. I don't quite know where that performance came from, really. I mean, obviously you'd always had him down as an Ascot horse, and he duly won there 2 starts ago and impressed when he did, and coped with a bit of cut in the ground. But that was on a par with anything he's ever done before in the Beverley Bullet. So I'm going to give him another chance out of 1. I think, he ran well here early on in the year behind Came From the Dark. I thought that was a fairly good effort. He looks in rude health at the moment. For some reason, he's just clicked. It could be quite a big afternoon for Clive Cox. He's got some interesting chances through the card, and I'll take a small chance with him. It's not a race I'm in love with, I've got to be honest. So it'd probably be a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for me, but I will just side with him, because I don't know whether stall 1 might be a bit of a bonus as well, depending on how the racing pans out there.
I 100% agree with you, and I'm kicking myself for not taking. It's something I'd gotten over at Newbury, the draw on the straight track, when I think middle to far side, so lower numbers, is definitely where you wanted to be, until about 2 seasons ago, where I'm not sure it played out so much. And the last couple of meetings there, I was with Racing TV colleague Steve Mellish there, I think 2 meetings ago at Newbury, and you had to be off that stand side rail anyway. So, anything that raced towards that, you were getting well and truly stuffed. Now the stalls are in the centre, and I think you're absolutely right. I think there is an advantage to be won. So do I, Cardem in 8, is it a slight niggling concern? Maybe it is. I still think he's a fair price, but I'd want Jim Crowley to be spearheading up. I'd want him to be spearheading up the middle rather than tracking stand side. It's not a massive field, but I think you've definitely hit on something there, and I think that's worth taking into account. Top Secret, for example, who came out and won an Ascot Handicap, had been collared at Newbury a couple of meetings ago, having raced in definitely the worst part of the track up the near side, and I think that's worth taking into account.
Yeah, as I say, I don't think it probably won't play out massively with just 8 runners, but it's just something just to bear in mind, perhaps, and just have a look at how the earlier racing goes. I think it was a maiden earlier on and stuff like that, so that might give you a little bit of an idea. There's also a 7 furlong handicap, I think, the 140, which might just give you a pointer going into that 215. Yeah,
definitely worth paying attention to that. Let's kick on to Ayr for the Silver Cup, the Ayr Silver Cup, which is the 230. It's open, obviously. Black Rod is 6.5. Magical Spirit is next in 11.0, as is Royal Scimitar. Bergerac 13.0. That's probably Steve Jones's favourite or second favourite programme, behind Minder.
Yeah. What about the Sweeney? I think the Sweeney.
Not Minder. I get all those silly programmes.
Horses.
Yeah, that's up there. That's top 10. That's top 5, I think.
Yeah.
He hadn't heard some of the ones I get.
Probably Till Death Us Do Part now.
Yeah. Woven is 15.0, and then we're into the bigger prices. Right. Well, let's start with the draw. I don't know about you. I've got different ideas as to where it's going to pay to be drawn in the Silver and the Gold Cup, Sam. That said, one feeds into the other. So what happens in the Silver Cup can decide what happens in the Gold Cup. But I do think there's slightly different pace angles in either side. Go on.
What's your theory in this race?
So I think I'll kick off with the horse I like. The horse I like is drawn 9. It's Royal Scimitar, and I think that the majority of the pace that's going to hold up is low, so it's going to be over the far side. And I think it's ever so slightly the other way in the Gold Cup, but that's a concern because, like I say, one can feed into the other. So, personally, I'd rather be drawn in the lower stalls over the far side for this contest. What about you?
Yeah, I've got Uncle Jumbo 1, Bergerac, the aforementioned, in 5. And there's a bit of other pace over there as well. Obviously, Royal Scimitar will be fairly handy. Gabriel the Devil will be fairly handy. Magical Spirit, who'd be my selection to win it again for the second successive year, he'd be fairly handy as well. And possibly Soldier's Minute. So there does look a good hold. There's less chance of a pace collapse, I think, over on that side. So yeah, I'm with you. I want to be low. You know, it's all subjective. We haven't seen the bronze yet, have we? So
no,
you know, that'd make a bit of a difference as well. But
so make your case, Sam. Only because I purposefully, because there's only 2 of us, I haven't gone through and looked at your selection. So Magical Spirit was genuinely number 2 on my list, but he's just been a bit frustrating. But go on, take it away, Magical Spirit.
I think there'll be a bit more confidence if Tis Marvellous manages to win the 2:15, because obviously he was third to it at Ascot. He just looks to be coming to the boil. I think Kevin Stott's riding tremendously well since he's come back from injury. Really sad that he was out for a month, because I'm not saying he'd have be champion jockey, but he certainly would have had his best ever season, because I think he's been in great nick since he's come back. I think you get a bit of everything from Kevin. You get a bit of all action. You get tactically, pretty switched on, as we saw at Ayr this afternoon on one of those Midland Park horses. He was in the right place at the right time. He's strong, determined, and he seen to good effect on this horse last year when blasting away and beating Admiralty in this race, very comfortably. His form has dipped, not Kevin's. The horse's form has just gone tailing off a little bit after that performance, but that was a really good effort at Ascot and just signalled that he might well be back for me. And I do like Kevin's Ryan sprinters at this meeting. So as a stall 4 with plenty of pace over on that far side, he doesn't have to make it, but he can certainly be handy and look to launch a quite consistent and persistent challenge over on that far side rail. So he'll do for me about 11.0, I think.
Yeah, I thought the return, for all it's a stiff track at Ascot, I thought the return to 6 was going to be ideal for him. And I suppose one of the slight niggles was I didn't know if he's slightly better with ease underfoot, but I suppose it's not going to be. It's not as if it's going to be. Well, it shouldn't be rattling quick, should it?
No, that's a very good point. I mean, he really enjoyed getting his toe in last year, and then didn't run badly behind Gulliver at York on his next start either, off a revised mark. So yeah, you might have a very good point there. But at least you can wait till Saturday afternoon just to calculate whether there's enough dig for him.
I'm going with the horse that's drawn in 9, which is Royal Scimitar, who has blinkers on for the first time. I suppose that's an indication that he's going to go forward more so perhaps than he did last time. He sat in behind, or not really far away from Potmaster, in behind the leader. But the main thing was that he wasn't all that sharply away, and he has been a bit slowly away and awkward before at the stalls. Interesting that they'd campaigned him over further right at the start of the year and then dropped him back to 6. So I think the blinkers is possibly or should be a plus. Dimitro's on fire. Form is good from Ascot a couple of starts ago. Newmarket Enlisted Company wasn't his bag, but I think he's capable of a mark of 97. And I just hope he travels better in the blinkers. I thought he looked like a horse who probably wanted headgear last time. Maybe he's a horse that does want to go back over 7 or something, and that might be the case. But I think there's enough pace on to give him a shot here. I'd quite like to see him just tuck in over the far side and ridden patiently enough, because he tends to finish pretty strongly. And I do think a big field handicap could be right up his street. I mean, the last time he contested a big field was in the Britannia. Well, that was over the mile, and that wasn't going to suit off 99. So I thought this was interesting enough off. He was interesting enough off 97 at 11.0. Magical Spirit's the same price.
I do like that angle though, Tom. Those horses that are proven over further, running in the straight 6 at Ayr. I mean, it works out quite often in a race like the Wokingham as well, where you really do need like almost extended stamina at the 6. You've got to see the 6 out strongly. So the 7 furlong horses do go particularly well in those sort of races. And I think the Ayr Gold Cup, you ideally want the Ayr Silver Cup or the Bronze, a 6.5 horse really that really does see the trip out strongly.
Would you say it's a stiff sprint track, or because I don't really ever know? I never call it anything really. It's not a sharp one, and I don't really see it as a stiff. Maybe it is though. I mean, not quite Ascot stiff if you like, but you want a horse that stays. You think?
I think so. I mean, we used to see it quite a lot in days gone by. When I was watching it in black and white, you'd often get horses that really did one a little bit further. And I just think in these strongly run handicaps, which are invariably, even over 6, you might see a smaller handicap on a weekday 6, which might be quite a tactical fare, but these are just jump and run, and you've really got to be able to travel, quicken, and then see the trip out very strongly to win these top handicaps. Like last year, you were taking on potential group horses in Nahar, and as we get to the Gold Cup, we might be taking on another one there. So you really do need a horse that sees the trip out strongly. It's not for the faint-hearted, these races, and you've got to be pretty resilient and be able to run to the line.
We'll move back to Newbury for the Legacy Cup, which was formerly known as the Arc Trial, but they changed it because I don't think an Arc horse ever ran it. 250. This is LRC is right at the top of the betting. He's half interesting. 2.0. It's bigger than I thought it might be. 4.0 for Fox's Tail. Solid Stone is 7.5. 9.0 for Il Arab, who's got cheap pieces on for the first time. Add-in for Nightham is 34.0. I'm currently not going to have a bet, and unless LRC got, I don't know. He's really tempting, Sam. Why can't I quite back him? I can't. Do you know what? I think the ground is important to LRC, and I would just with dry conditions. If times were quick side of good, that would worry me. But if they were the easy side of good, I can see myself, if he's still 2.0, probably backing him. But I can't quite get my head around the race at the moment. So help.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say with these autumn evenings and the night's drawing, unfortunately, the moisture seems to hang about in the ground a little bit longer, and they've got some cut in the ground at the moment at Newbury, and I wonder whether it will significantly dry out before Saturday, especially if they get the odd shower. He's a horse that really polarizes opinion. I mean, he could be 4 from 4 this year, and he could be, sort of 3 on for this race, but he's even money because everyone thinks he's a bit of a twicer. I might take a little bit of issue with that. I don't know whether... Yes, all right. He's been out battled at Epsom by a good Epsom horse in Pile Driver, who's well proven at the track. He's been out battled at Newmarket as well by Sir Ron Priestley, who was a horse that when he got the bit between the teeth was extremely difficult to pass. But his 2 runs at Newbury, he's cantered all over his rivals, Thunderous and Without a Fight, and basically won without a fight on both starts. And this is a home game for him as well, having been away to Epsom and possibly, Newmarket on the July course not suiting him ideally either. I just think the flatter track here, the more of a conformed venue, the one that it suits him really well. Just a more orthodox track would be really right up his street, and I find it hard to put one up against him, if I'm honest. I mean, I wouldn't want to be lame at evens because you could probably lay him a lot shorter in the run, and that might be the way to go, to trade with him, back him, pre-race, let the others do their thing, Solid Stone, Il Arab, etc., in the cheap pieces, and just watch Jim Crowley cruise up, have him in short at 5 or 6 on, and be prepared to give away some of your profit. But if he does throw the towel in, then you can revisit this piece and say, well, you don't know what you're on about. But I know he's gone very short in the run the last 2 starts, and he should have possibly won at least one of those races, but look, he didn't. And he was beaten by 2 pretty useful horses, Pile Driver and Sir Ron Priestley. And I'm not sure there's anything of that quality. Okay, Fox's Tails is going the right way, but I'm not sure they're that level. So I think evens is perfectly fair.
I completely agree with you that he will trade short on that in the run. He has to. There is no way he doesn't, I don't think. And I thought the ground was quick enough for him last time. I've always had that view about LRC. Epsom, the one of the stiffest 1.5 miles in the country. Pile Driver's a strong stayer. He was he was beaten by a hard and strong staying horse. So yeah, no, I last time was disappointing, but I had a ground niggle. And they've made the cruelest cut of all, which might have just sorted him out at RC. I think I think there were a few people after Epsom saying, "Does he need gelding?" Well, that's what they've done. So, yeah, I can. I'll probably end up following you in there, Sam.
I mean, at least in that Newmarket run, the fourth one since, hasn't it? Bangkok went and won that. Is it the Sky Bet of York? So at least there was a little bit of a boost to come out of that race. Yeah, he's not. He wouldn't be one for a maximum bet. I don't very often bet at those prices anyway, because you're only buying a ticket to the next race, really. So even money. But he is 2 from 2 at the track. He does travel very well. He looks a good trading vehicle. And if you've got to have a bet in the race, I would just have the proviso that I'd probably have him back in at 8 on, 9 on if he looked like he was going to canter up and didn't quite go through with it. And be fully prepared to give away some of your winnings if he does go and win. And don't chastise yourself afterwards, because that's the plan at the start of the race.
Yeah, agree with you. Let's kick on to the 305 at Ayr. It's the Firth of Clyde. Got an Irish raider in here who is very interesting. Headmistress for J. Lyons and Gary Carroll, 4.0. Scott's Grace is 7.0, a point bigger for Hala Athmani. And 8.5 for Hello My Darling, 9.0 for Canonize. Then we get stuck into the bigger prices. The two that interested me here, Sam, were Headmistress and Hala Athmani. Had both put up good. Well, it was a particularly good time on debut, I thought, from Kevin Ryan's horse. That feels easier to stay. Who saw it out really well at Carlisle last time. And I think could be pretty smart, to be honest. Doesn't have any sort of Group 1 entries off the back of this, but I was taken with it. I was taken with the time as well, and I think we'll take a big step forward for it. But I was just more persuaded. I might well back them both, to be honest. Small, because I would only be a small stakes in a juvenile race of this nature. But I do think it was interesting that Headmistress was being considered for Cheveley Park, and now I assume, although she still has the entry, isn't going to go there a week later, and that they're coming here into calmer waters. But I thought that was interesting. Has looked good on both starts. The Curragh time enlisted company was very good. I'd be much. She's an Irish raider at 4.0, and I suppose it's hard to say that the Irish juvenile fillies are any better than the British. We don't really know yet. They haven't met enough, but the yard could hardly be going any better. Yeah. And as far as a string of 2-year-olds goes, they've clearly got a nice bunch this year. And J. Lyons has always said he's been more patient with his juveniles this year. So I think he's going to have a really good end of campaign. My only slight niggle why it's not a stronger bet is because I just don't ever like a juvenile drawn on a wing if you can help it. And that's my only doubt. That's the only thing. A field of 15, I don't know that that's going to be ideal. Yeah, it's not as if she needs cover. She likes to race handy. I'd imagine Gary Carroll will just, come over and maybe, come middle to far side. I don't know. It's probably going to be a way over to that rail. So with 15 runners, but that's just tempering my enthusiasm. So small stakes, 4.0 Headmistress for me. You, Sam?
Yeah, she could be a class above these in some respects. I'd like to have seen 1 or 2 more horses that she's beaten come out and win. I don't think that's particularly good. They're not particularly strong in behind what she has beaten so far. They disappointingly, performed a little bit under par, those horses that finished in her wake. So that's a bit of a worry. Store 1, as you rightly alluded to, is a slight concern. She's stretching out from 5 to 6. That shouldn't be a problem. As you say, J. Lyons, was it 1,600 to 1 4-time or something over Champions Weekend in great nick. I'm happy to let her win at 3 to 1. I've got to be honest. It's not a race I'm particularly in love with. I'm going to go more a middle draw, a filly that's been kept pretty busy, and that's Hello My Darling. A small win and a little bit more place on her, I think, at sort of 8.8 or maybe even 9 if we can get it. She's only really posted 1 poor performance this year, and that's when she tackled 7 furlongs on soft ground at Deauville. Everything else, she's been really consistent. I know she's a little bit exposed, but if I've got to have a play in the race, I think I'd play her, as I say, smallish win, 30% win, and probably a 70% place of whatever stake I was looking to play. And fingers crossed she runs well again. I like David Allen. The booking of David Allen looks a smart move for the trainer for me, because just think he rides Ayr absolutely brilliantly, David. I don't think he's a hugely underrated rider anyway, and I think having someone like him on side is another bonus. So that's probably the way I'll attack the race.
8.5 Hello My Darling win and place for Sam, and I'm sticking small stakes with the favourite. Right, we move on to the 325 at Newbury, which is the Dubai Duty Free Handicap Class 2 contest over the 10, 11 runners. Aramaic is looking for the 3-timer for the treble. Is 5.0, 6.5 for King of Clubs, 7.5 for Moasis, 8.0 in Jazati, as is King Leonidas. Leonidas, I've said that wrong, haven't I, Sam? Who is King Leonidas? Who is King Leonidas? No clue.
I wouldn't know either way.
Jonesy'd know. He'd be like,
you'd be better read than I would, Tom.
Hey?
You'd be better read than I would be.
Yeah, see, Jonesy'd be like, oh, he built the pyramids in so-and-so. Yeah, but there you go. Yeah. Sam Cook is 11.0. Who's Sam Cook? Who's Sam Cook?
Sam Cook was a singer, wasn't he?
Was he?
I think so.
Yeah. No, the Chelsea thoroughbreds often name their horses after crooners of a bygone year.
Yeah, certainly not me anyway.
Dewam 12.0. Yeah, bigger prices the rest. Go on, Sam, take it away. I thought this was tough.
Yeah, really tricky. On a busy day, it probably wouldn't be towards the top of my list of races. I wanted to punt heavy. The pin fell on King of Clubs, who I was really taken with his tenacity last time to win at Sandown. Beat Victory Chime, who's come out and won at Chester quite cosily. I think Hughie Morrison won this with Buzz, Rory Delaghy's favourite horse, 2 or 3 years ago, a horse that we followed off the proverbial cliff here on the pod, and he finally delivered, bless him. So it looks as though this race might have been a little bit of a target for him. I did wonder whether he was going to be sort of a Cambridgeshire horse, or even if they run that silver Cambridgeshire anymore, that a strongly run 9 would be absolutely ideal for him. But I think 10's okay at Newbury. And as you saw at Sandown last time, I thought he got a great ride off Holly Doyle. I think Dave Probert's a more than adequate substitute rider. He's had a really, really good season, David. Stall One's, I'm not in love with that, if I'm honest, on the round track at Newbury. Certainly in a reasonably sized field. I don't think that's absolutely perfect position, but I'm happy to take the Fav on. I know he's done a fair bit of racing since the start of August. I just wonder, whether he can keep thriving, keep improving. I know they're going to the well again a couple of weeks after he won well at York, but whether he just manages to peak again will be a question to ask. I suppose you could say the same about King of Clubs, but at least he's had a month off, the pause that refreshes and recuperates. And fingers crossed he can follow up that Sandown performance.
It's a purely price selection, Sam. And this sounds utterly ridiculous, but I can almost find more reasons to talk myself out of a bet than into it. But at the prices, I just think Moasis compared to Aramaic is just a bit too big, bit too much between them, I think. Given that Aramaic has now got to give Moasis £1. At Kempton, there was only a neck between them. And I was working that day, and it was, it felt like Aramaic was the one to take out the race all day. The Moasis has had a run. She Murphy was banging everything in at the time. And yes, exactly. Glad I said in. Yes, exactly. And Moasis, I came away thinking Moasis won at 3's on. I thought, well, Aramaic's one to side with, and then great. Aramaic then rocks up at 3's on and wins, and then rocks up at a short price and a handicap and wins, and certainly didn't carry my money. I think he's the right favourite. My issue as well is ever so slightly that this is 4 quick runs in relatively quick succession. I just thought, I can now easily make a case that Moasis is well treated off 93, definitely, and that the step up in trip should definitely suit. So slight niggles would be he seems to be at his best when dominating so far. Well, I don't know that he's going to be allowed to do that with other horses that do like to crack on with it in the field. So that would be a slight concern. Injazati's gone forward before. I don't think King Leonidas will be too far away, although it's his first start for a while. So that would be a slight issue. Sam Cook coming back in trip, I wonder if it won't be too far away. And loosely, you know, he's a pivotal. Will he be all right if it's? I don't think it's going to be quick grad, so maybe I'll throw that one out. But I thought he was just too big at the prices. I can see why he will be beaten by Aramaic, but I thought, given that they've got form in and around each other, and he had the beating of Aramaic a couple of starts ago. Ray Dawson rode him last time. Great season Ray's having, and he's very smart as well. I think he's good from the front too. I thought Moasis was worth a bet because you can do win and place. I'd be disappointed if he's out the 3, to be honest. So I thought 7.5 was fair enough, but it's a trappy enough affair.
Yeah, it's a good handicap, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good handicap. I just found it hard to put a line through many of them. That was, I suppose, that was my issue.
Agreed.
Let's move on. So just to recap, Moasis for me at 7.5 and 6.5 King of Club. Would you be win and place, Sam, King of Clubs?
Probably just win only, really, because I don't, not sure he's got strong Newbury form or anything like that. He's not really a compelling bet, but he would just be my selection in the race, really. Okay.
Move on to the 340 at Ayr, which is the feature, the Ayr Gold Cup. Prices, Great Ambassador 6.0 and then 11.0. Comanche Falls, Stewards Cup winner, Potmaster and Blinkers for the first time. Ed Walker's second string is 11.0 for an Ayr Gold Cup. A point bigger, Just Frank. Then we're into the bigger prices. So what did you think draw-wise, Sam?
Pace, Mr. Wagyu, 16 down the middle. Just Frank, probably Sunday Sovereign high. Hey Jonesy on the far side. If we can give Meg Nichols 10 quid to go flying down the far side, she might well do that. But that'll be ridden aggressively. I would thought Brad the Brief, perhaps another one that might go down the middle. Yeah, I thought there was a fair spread here rather than the other race where I thought it was, the Silver Cup was more low. You will always get one or two that have a bid for glory as well, but probably the more brazen speed is high here. I do concede that.
Yeah, that's where I came down anyway. I probably want one either side. The sort of more fancied runners are far side, but I felt the more pace is like, I just thought there could be a bit of value up high. Anyway, go on. Who do you like, Sam?
Well, I've gone for a bit of thrown a dart at the board really with Volatile Analyst, who's a horse that has been campaigned over further, and we alluded to it earlier on the podcast that I do quite like horses that have been winning over 7, running okay over a mile, and they drop back in trip, especially if they've got good air form like this lad has. I think he was 2 from 2 at Ayr, and then he looked a very promising juvenile 2-year-old, and then sort of went off the ball a bit, and they gelded him, and then they campaigned him over 7, and he won at York. And I wonder whether he conned them into thinking that, he was a 7 furlong stroke miler. He ran really poorly at Royal Ascot, where I thought he had a bit of a chance in that handicap there. But back to 6, drawn 10 down the middle. There looks a bit of pace in and around him. He travelled like a dream over a mile there last time and got smacked over the head, I think, by I don't know whether it was Chilier or another horse that was in that race, and put his head in the air a little bit and didn't see the trip out and just plugged on the one pace. But he did travel like the best horse in that race last time. And I think, stepping back to the truly run 6 should suit him ideally. And look, he's going to be a big price. I think he's double carpet, 34.0. So I would go small win and place with him. Yeah. Those at the front end of the market, I think Great Ambassador has the potential to be a Nahar, really. He's put up 2 really, really top-class performances on the clock. On the ratings I keep, he's been, phenomenal. Even in that small runner field at York last time, that was a really sparkling performance on the clock. So stall 1 for me is it could be a bit of a bogey. So I definitely want to be seeing how the racing panned out before I got involved with him at that sort of price. But he's been my long-term fancy for the race. I just couldn't get involved because of the prices, but he might well have a saver for me come the day. If he drifted a little bit or there isn't quite the money for him and they come for 1 or 2 others. And as often happens with these anti-post horses, sometimes the market goes off them a little bit, but his yard couldn't be in better form. And if stall 1's not a barrier to success, then he'll be carrying some of my money anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, unless everything's winning up the stand side rail, I think 6.0 is fair. I'd just back him in the win market just a bit more than a saver. I thought, he's actually rated 105, but he's got the £5 penalty to 106. I mean, I thought the handicapper, even though he's officially for this because of the penalty 106. I thought, I thought he bolted up last time, enlisted company, and I thought, well, if he was rocking up here off 105, great. I agree. I think he's a proper horse who does stay further. He's proved that in the past. He better ground. He's at his best. He ran a belter in the Stewards Cup when getting very wayward, and God, he looked really good at Newmarket. He's hitting form at the right time of the year, and I think I found it hard to oppose him at the top of the market. So I'd want him on side. The other one is Astilio, who sneaks in at the other end of the handicap, and Paul Midgley's clever when it comes to these sprinters, and he's monkeyed around with his trip this year, and he's clearly sees him as a sprinter. And I'm actually pretty excited to see him now back up to the 6 on a half decent surface. I just wonder if they were, he was rated 105 at the start of the year, and I wonder if they thought, he could be an Ayr Gold Cup horse, and then they got him down to 93 and thought, oh shit, he might not get in. He ran well last time. He looked like he wanted 6, and I can see a lot about this suiting of the higher drawn numbers where I think there's a good bit of pace. He was the one I wanted on side, 17.0. I love that.
And Paul Midgley's had a double with his sprinters this afternoon as well, Mr. Orange and Thriller Manila. So they couldn't be in better form, could they, going into this meeting?
You took the words right out of my mouth, he says. Good. Click on to the 4 o'clock at Newbury. This is the Dubai Duty-Free Mill Reef Stakes. Dabab is 3.0. Gubbus is 6.0. 7.5 for Gissa Sub. Fearby 9.0. Then into the bigger prices. I'll go first here, if you don't mind, Sam, with Fearby, who I think Jonesy put him up last time, and he ran really well. I suppose he's become a bit frustrating, but I wasn't. Steve made the argument that he was looking forward to seeing him over 6 at York, and I wasn't sure I absolutely agree. But after the run, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him over 6, and probably a stiffer track as well. I thought at 9.0 he was a touch overpriced. Ground doesn't seem a problem for him. That second to Armour, I know it was a good bit second when he kept on. That's really good form. As far as the official ratings goes, he doesn't have a huge amount to find. He's just completely unexposed over the 6, and I think this track will suit more than York. So I was happy enough to have him on side. And yes, in answer to your next question, I am now slightly concerned about the draw because he's drawn 10 of 10 on the Newbury straight track. But hey, what are you going to do?
It might be the place to be. You just don't know.
I don't know that it is. I still, look, I can't pin my selections around that. So I think he's definitely a big enough price to get involved.
Yeah, and that's the way I'm going to play this race. I've got a respect for Dabab. I put him up at Ascot at reasonable price, and it didn't quite happen for him that day. He didn't enjoy it over 7. He patently didn't get the trip behind Native Trail at Newmarket. He's had a good break since. He's a real dangerous horse. Back at 6, this should suit him ideally as well. If he returns that sort of Leicester performance on the clock, he's going to be tough to beat. But I'll definitely have 2 or 3 small each way, win and place bets against him. I think Manakan is very interesting out stall 2. There was a good buzz for this horse first time up at Ayr, and it was only an experience that got him beat that day. He then ran well at Yarmouth, and then Newmarket last time he beat Wajid, and I thought that was a pretty smart performance. Reversion was 3rd that day. Wajid's won this afternoon at Yarmouth as well, so that race is already working out quite nicely. I think he's about 17.0. And then I couldn't let Wings of War and Hierarchy run without punting them as well. I got that really good speed figure at Kempton. I know it's Kempton form, it's going to Newbury, but that's factored into the prices at Wings of War 15.0. He goes on fast ground as well at Nottingham and Leicester. I know it might not be fast at Newbury this weekend, but it shouldn't be too soft. And it's Clive Cox as well, who obviously has won this race in the past. Hierarchy ran really well as well behind Eve Lodge. So I'm a bit loaded up on outsiders there. So whether I back them win and place, or whether I just back all 3, Wings of War, Hierarchy, and Manakan at double figure odds and hope for the Jack to come up. But it's not a race for me to be punting the short price favourite. Although I do respect him. I think there's enough potential, and the figures are telling me, the speed ratings are telling me that all those 3 at bigger prices are all live contenders. So I've got to look to try and press up.
Yeah, absolutely. 4:15 at Ayr is a handicap over a mile. The last race we're going to be looking at, and prices: Cruyff Turn 6.0, 6.5 Dance Fever, as is Chalier. Garden Oasis 9.0. Chalet is 11.0, as is Hong Kong Harry 12.0, and bigger the rest. You can tell us at what World Cup that Cruyff coined the turn, can't you, Sam?
74 was it? Was it 74?
Don't look at me. It was definitely the 70. On it.
Or was it 78? Oh, I don't know. I am actually a little bit young. I wasn't actually watching football. Probably 78 World Cup was the first one I remember. I know everyone thinks you should remember the 62 World Cup, but I don't. It's an age thing. It's an age thing. Anyone that remembers, I'd say, has to be on the older side. You see, and unfortunately, our producer has just noted that it was 1974 West Germany. Well, 74, so,
yeah. There you go. Yeah, thanks, Sal. Good man. Go on. Who do you like?
Dance Fever for me here. Waiting for him to go over a mile. Finally does. I think it's a good move. Obviously, we've seen him run really well over a stiff 7 furlongs at Leicester and Ascot. He just looked, for all the world, like he was going to need a mile last time at Goodwood behind stablemate Aratus, or Aratus, however you want to pronounce it. You'll know better than me. But I think that's where they get a little bit of improvement out of him when he stretches up from 7 to the mile. So fingers crossed, Saturday is his day.
I haven't got much to add. It's the only race we really agree on. I think Dance Fever. It was one of those where, when you pull up a race and you have a quick just look at the names going down it, and then you're not going to back anything else, no matter what you see. You're like, I'm not backing anything else. He's crying out for the return to a mile. I think. I still think he's well treated. The yard are going along nicely. With Hector and Crouch and Clive got so good few winners of late. And I think that Aratus form is very strong. It's really. I think that's a really good horse. But he was outspeeded. He definitely wants to go back over further. Quicker ground is what he wants. He'll get that. And he'd be, of all of them, the best bet on the day. So I thought 6.5 was very. I'd have him as favourite. I was really surprised he wasn't. So
snap.
Good danger. All right. So. Saturday best bets. I give him mine away. Is Dance Fever returning to a mile in the 4:15 at Ayr. Sam, you got a couple for us?
A couple of small, well, not small, but modest each ways really. 140 Spanish Star at Newbury. I got that really good speed figure a couple of starts ago when he won. Didn't get the run of race at Sandown. Wasn't necessarily his cup of tea really, that sort of race. I think back to Newbury, the scene of where he recorded a good figure. Happy to bet him at 11.0, win and place. I think. Can
I add to that that I think David Probert back on is a massive plus. Yes. No disrespect to the man that rode him last time, which was Dwyer, I think, but he is a tricky enough customer sometimes. I think David Probert just gets on with it really well. I will follow you in there. I hadn't looked at the race, but I like it. Go on.
Okay, double figure odds about him then. And the other interesting one for me is Fox Vardy in the 5:05, the last race. He was second in the race last year, hasn't run since. So obviously he's had problems or whatever. Or they've just decided off a mark of 92 that, this is going to be the race we're going to go for again. And he sneaks in here because it hasn't filled significantly. So they were playing Russian roulette a little bit. But obviously he's allowed to run even up to 0 to 90 when the race doesn't fill, even if he's a couple of pounds over the official threshold. So I think it's very interesting that, they're coming back and they've targeted this race. Thought he ran well last time, but, when we saw him run the take back, he just couldn't get past Union, who was in good form at the time. So I think he's very interesting at sort of 7.5 as well. Goes well fresh, has won off a 250 odd day break as well. So I wouldn't have thought fitness would be the issue. My only problem is I find Martin Mead's horses difficult to catch right, but he's had 2 or 3 that have run well at good prices in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully they're going well enough.
Great stuff. Sam, thank you very much. Right. Indeed, we're done for the pod. Don't forget to go to insights.matchbook.com to review all of Sam and my selections, including our best bets as well. Sam, I will see you very soon, and I look forward to it. And we'll chat to you all again at home next week. Good luck this weekend. Bye-bye.